In the West, philosophers often face death as a duel. Plato treats it as liberation. Epicurus dismisses it as nothing. The Stoics transform it into a compass. Montaigne makes it an exercise, a rehearsal. But in the East, something different happens. Here, death is not always an enemy to conquer, nor a puzzle to solve. It is part of a larger cycle, a rhythm, a dance. To understand Eastern philosophy is to see that death and life are not opposites, but partners. The Buddha's first and deepest insight was into impermanence. Anicca, all things are passing, all things are in flux. To cling is to suffer. To release is to awaken. In this view, death is not a singular catastrophe, but the most natural expression of impermanence. Just as leaves fall, rivers flow, stars collapse, so too do we. But Buddhism goes further. It asks, what is it that dies? We think of ourselves as permanent beings, a solid I, continuous from birth to death. But the Buddha taught anatta, the doctrine of no self. The self is not a permanent soul, but a collection of ever-changing processes: body, sensations, perceptions, mental formations, consciousness. Death, then, is not the end of a self because the self was never fixed to begin with. When we die, the bundle unravels. The processes dissolve. The illusion of permanence is shattered. Yet, from this dissolution, something continues. Not a soul, not an ego, but karma, the chain of cause and effect. Like a flame lighting another flame, consciousness gives rise to new existence. This is samsara, the cycle of birth and rebirth. But Buddhism does not stop there. For beyond samsara lies nirvana, the extinguishing of craving, the end of clinging, and thus the end of the cycle. Nirvana is not life after death, but the release from the very grip of birth and death itself. In this light, death is not the ultimate tragedy. It is a teacher, whispering the truth of impermanence. And liberation comes not from fearing it, but from embracing it. The Buddhist monk sits by the burning corpse not to despair, but to awaken. He contemplates the rotting body not as horror, but as reality. And in that acceptance, he is freed. In Hindu philosophy, the self is not an illusion, but an essence, Atman, the eternal soul. And this Atman is bound to the great cosmic order, Brahman, the absolute. Death here is not an end, but a passage. The soul leaves one body and takes another, carried by karma through countless lifetimes. Birth and death are doors, not walls. The Bhagavad Gita captures this with crystalline clarity. Krishna tells the warrior Arjuna, as a man sheds worn-out garments and puts on new ones, so the soul casts off the worn-out body and enters into others that are new. In this way, death becomes natural, inevitable, and not to be feared. But still, it is not the final goal. For the soul is caught in the cycle of samsara, endlessly reborn, endlessly bound by desire and ignorance. The ultimate aim is moksha, liberation, to realize that the Atman and Brahman are one, to awaken from the illusion of separateness, to return not as an individual self, but as pure being, pure consciousness beyond the cycle. Thus, in Hinduism, death can be understood in two lights. On one level, it is simply a change of form, a shedding of garments. On another, it is the doorway to liberation, if one has attained wisdom, devotion, and freedom from attachment. Where the West imagines death as a full stop, Hinduism imagines it as a comma in a vast, cosmic sentence. If Buddhism teaches impermanence, and Hinduism teaches rebirth, Taoism teaches flow. For the Taoist, death is neither an illusion nor a catastrophe. It is part of the endless transformations of the Tao, the mysterious, ineffable way of the universe. Laozi, in the Tao Te Ching, writes, "Life and death are one thread, the same line viewed from different sides. Death, in this vision, is simply another phase of the Tao's movement. As rivers merge into oceans, As clouds dissolve into rain, as fire becomes ash, so does life become death, and death become life again. The sage does not resist this. He does not cling to life or tremble at death. He flows. He accepts. There is a story of the Taoist philosopher Zhuangzi, whose wife died. His friends came to console him and found him not weeping, but drumming on a pot and singing. Shocked, they asked him why. Zhuangzi replied, at first he grieved, but then he reflected. Before her birth, his wife had no form, no breath, no consciousness. Then, through the Tao, she was born, lived, and now returned. To resist this natural cycle is to resist the Tao itself. In Taoism, to fear death is to miss the harmony of existence. The sage walks in rhythm, knowing that life and death are but two notes in the same eternal song. If Taoism is about flow, Zen is about immediacy. Zen strips away speculation. It does not debate souls, reincarnation, or metaphysical cycles. Instead, it asks, what is death here and now? The Zen master faces death with a strange serenity, sometimes even humor. Many Zen monks, on their deathbeds, composed poems, sharp, sudden, paradoxical, as if death were just another chance to awaken. One wrote, empty-handed, I enter the world. Barefoot, I leave it. My coming, my going, two simple happenings that got entangled. Another wrote, death is coming. I laugh and laugh, because I am already nothing. In Zen, death is not to be conquered, explained, or transcended. It is to be met directly, without illusion, without clinging. To die before you die, to realize your nothingness while still alive, is the ultimate Zen insight. For when you awaken to emptiness, death loses its sting. It is no different from life, no different from this breath, this silence, this falling leaf. And so, from the East, we inherit a different gaze. Where the West often sharpens death into an enemy, the East dissolves it into a cycle, a flow, a nothingness. Death is not an intruder, but a partner in the dance of being. Buddhism teaches us impermanence and the end of self. Hinduism teaches us rebirth and the quest for liberation. Taoism teaches us flow and the acceptance of transformation. Zen teaches us immediacy and the embrace of nothingness. All whisper the same truth, that death is not outside life, but at its very heart. And so again, the question returns, what are you doing while waiting to die? Do you cling? Do you fear? Or do you flow, dissolve, laugh, knowing that death too is life? In part 3, we will turn to the great monotheistic religions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and explore how they transform death into judgment, resurrection, and eternity. But for now, sit with the Eastern wisdom. To die is to return. To die is to flow. To die is to awaken.